Hello world, it's Lana here coming at you with another video inspired by the We Can Do Hard Things podcast. This time I have compiled some thoughts from after listening to episode 293 where the hosts chat with Alok. I don't know a ton about them and their experience, but I highly recommend listening to the entire podcast. It was really interesting, and I wrote down so many notes that I could probably split off into a bunch of separate different videos, but for the sake of perhaps saving you some time, if you don't have the chance to listen to I think it was a full hour podcast, these are the things that resonated with me, and maybe they'll resonate with you. So first off, there was just so much. There was so much in this podcast. But the start of the podcast, there were some themes around love and sort of fear of disappointment that we have in society, and how that fear of rejection, of this almost cynicism towards love and lasting love and real true love leads us, or a lot of us, to seek more superficial relationships. And I think some of that is a product of our very visual society, our heavy use of social media, etc., etc. But that was something that came up, and how our fear is getting in the way of real connection. The other thing was that they talked about was society forcing us into performative consistency, which I have been talking about with people for a long time, and just how I feel like that's led to a lot of polarization in our world, because it's it's become more difficult to be wrong, to change your mind, to learn something new, and to change your perspective. And if you want to appear credible or to remain in a community, you have to sort of tell the story about yourself as always having been this way or thought this way. And when you discover a new part of yourself, or change your mind about something, decide to leave a community, that can be really emotional, chaotic. You can be called out for it in a very negative way. And so a lot of people stay in these little echo chambers because they're too afraid to lose that community, because if they change their mind about something, it's going to be oh, okay, you're gone. And in the context of the episode, they talk about being religious or evangelical Christians and leaving that community, or coming out as gay, and losing community over that discovery of a new part of yourself, which is just why? We're on this earth to change and evolve. And that kind of brought them into, I feel the next point that came up in the podcast episode, where it was talking about gender and sexuality and transgender folks, and how living is evolution, and creative living is about birth and rebirth, and sort of a constant flux of figuring more out about yourself and changing your mind about things. And so the one of the good quotes that I picked out was, people will say trans people are just pretending to be a man, or pretending to be a woman, pretending to be in this role. But really, we are all just pretending to play these binary roles that have just been assigned to us. And I thought that was really interesting. And that a lot of sort of the negative reaction to transgender folks, or even just queer folks, is often coming from a place of a person's own repression of being told that they can't step outside of the lines or color outside of the lines and live a creative, authentic life. And I thought that's so interesting, how we shut others down for things that have hurt us in the past. Often. I'm not saying that's always the case, but yeah. And yeah. The other quote was sort of, I feel, therefore I am. Like, it kind of goes back to everything is, we feel like we need to justify ourselves in so many ways, and we are feeling emotional beings, and feelings and emotions change, and I may feel more masculine on one day and more feminine on another, and so I feel, therefore I am. So that was something I need to really wrap my head around more, but that was really thought-provoking. Here we go, on the gender lens as well. It's not about abolishing man or woman, it's about choice and examining what gender means to you, because we all have unique expressions of it. I really like that. And that we need to surrender to the unknowability of gender and life. So there's a lot of themes of sort of choice, everyone having their own unique experience with gender, sexual identity, and that changes. A lot of stuff, like for me, it didn't hit me until later in life. I'm still young, but and yeah, like, what is gender? Like, gender is a construct, it's a socialized thing. So yeah, gender in a sense is kind of unknowable, and that's also a reflection of life, that it's life, we don't know what's going to happen to us tomorrow, or how we're going to feel about something tomorrow, and that surrendering to the process of figuring it out, I thought was really a beautiful sentiment that came up. And then I think my favorite parts of the episode, and I apologize for this fluctuating light, sun's slowly going down, but the favorite parts of the episode are where they dug into thoughts around life and death and surrendering to the process, and how death puts things into perspective. So I'll read out some of the quotes that really stuck with me and discuss them with you. So one of the quotes was, God is here now, in me and in you. Heaven isn't on the other side. We can build it in every interaction while we are here. And we can relate to everything as a teacher or an invitation. And so I'm such a big fan of seeing the beauty and the light in everybody. And I think that's like my inner optimist of, I think if we believe that we are capable of great things and loving things and beautiful things, like, I think we will rise to that occasion. And I think if we all just vibrated on on a more loving but frequency, that there would be more peace and love in this world. And so I think choosing to see the God in others, whatever God means to you, maybe substitute the word God for love or the light or the humanity, it brings more humanity into how we treat others. And I think it makes it a little bit easier to be empathetic to other folks. And then the whole heaven isn't on the other side is an interesting piece too, because, sometimes I think we find ourselves living for the future, or for some kind of, that destination, or for some more religious folks, for heaven after death. And I think then there can be an opportunity lost to build that sense of peace and heaven and love and high vibrational living here while we are here. And then, and I think a way to do that is to relate to everything as an invitation to learn and grow and understand somebody better and more deeply. And so fear as a teacher, anxiety as is an invitation to examine what's going on deeper. All of the things. I just really love that. And then, and sort of on that same vein, another quote, all I need to know about you is that you are human and will die, which gives me the constitutive empathy for you. You're just a broken kid afraid of dying. Like, we're all just broken kids afraid of dying. And I just thought that was so interesting. Like, all I need to know is that you're another human, you're going to die one day, and you're probably also a little bit afraid of dying, just like me. And your humanity and my humanity, like, that is a connecting point. That is a uniting point. And so let's just give each other a little grace and love each other a little harder. Because in the end, there is democracy in death. And that was another kind of term that they used that I really liked. Death reminds us of the stakes. Like, spilling coffee on our shirt today, does it really matter in the grand scheme of things? We're all going to die. Like, getting afraid to get up on stage and talk in front of a group of people and maybe stumble over some words and mess up, or maybe make a grave error that is you can't even like play off. But did you die from that? Are you going to die of embarrassment? Unlikely. So like, it just puts things into perspective. And they talked a lot about life being about creating a dignified death. So we all know that this life is going to end. That's what brings it that like extra value, because it's finite. Our life on earth is finite. And so what can we do to get to that end point, whenever that is, because it might be tomorrow, it might be in 50 years from now, to feel at peace, I guess, with where we've landed. And so how can we live a more authentic, creative, loving life that surrenders to the unknowability and the unknown, and surrenders to change within ourselves and the world, because change is inevitable. And and then the last 2 points were about art as healthcare and spreading the joy and the beauty, because that's what sustains us. And I just thought, I love that, because like, just the fact that us humans can create such beautiful things and experiences that we can be a part of and view, and it just moves us so deeply, that feeling can feel so profound of being moved, is such a symbol of like, this is why we're here. This is why, like, I am living and experiencing to feel all of these things and be grateful for the beauty and the joy, and see that in others, and how we humans can bring so much profound beauty into the world. And I think it's great to try and spread that light and joy and beauty, and be a person that reminds others of that, because I don't think we can get through a life of challenge by focusing on all the things that are wrong in the world or upsetting, because there's no shortage. And so to have that strength to recognize those little things that can keep us going is so important, and so great to be able to do for others. And one of the things they talked about is having a beauty list. And basically it was like a playlist. So it could be songs that bring you joy and just make you feel like alive and wonderful. A TV show, or like a movie that you could watch over and over again. Or maybe it's a self-care ritual, or talking to a certain person in your life. Or for me, like going skating or rollerblading, or just getting into my body and like expressing makes me feel alive, and like, this is what life is about. Like, I'm so glad to be alive and living, and just feeling and expressing. And that just puts everything into perspective for me. And so those perspective creating beautiful moments of art can be so helpful to making it through, because life is ups and downs. The expansiveness of life and the universe and love and creativity and like our individual human capacity for evolution can put anxiety and loss into perspective. That was another big part about like, like we're all gonna die. Am I gonna die of stage fright? Probably not. So that kind of puts it into perspective. Or if someone in your life dies and passes on, like other good people and things will come into your life. And that's the beauty of how expansive life is, and how it works. Things change and come in and out of your life for reasons that you may not know, but kind of it works out in the end, I think, if you trust it too. So this was like my quick and dirty of like, these are all the things that I wrote down, but I assume I will probably take some of these themes and dive into them a little bit more deeply because, there's a lot there. But also, I encourage you to check out the episode on the We Can Do Hard Things podcast. And also, I think I'm just fed up with this light. I'm like, God damn it, I picked the wrong time of day to film. The sun is coming out of the clouds and then going behind the clouds, and I'm being blinded. And then I'm like, oh, I can see again. And then I go back to being blinded. So anyway, I listened to this podcast, I feel like almost a month ago now, and I just hadn't had the chance to debrief, but I took notes as I was listening, and I'm just, okay, I'm glad I got it out. and all of these things are things that I've been thinking about in my life for a long time, but put into slightly different words. So I'm sure they will be themes that come up in future videos. But yes, I encourage you to listen to the full thing if you can. And especially if, you enjoy sort of the more like spiritual universe kind of, a little bit of that woo-woo content, or are looking for a source of like inspiration and light, and maybe you've been feeling a bit more down and pessimistic about life. I think this is a really uplifting podcast episode, and just it provides a bit of a different perspective around change. I think like life changes, gender and sexuality changes, changing your mind and opinions on like social justice issues, for example, and putting life and life's challenges into perspective through death, and how that can kind of make all these little things that can take us off and pull us down, put it into perspective, make them seem like just these little silly things that we can laugh off. Because we're all gonna die. So like, what the heck? Why are we taking life so seriously? We're all gonna die. Like, what's the harm in changing our minds? Changing our minds, wearing a skirt, wearing pants. Like, who the heck cares? Because we're all gonna die. And that was like the main message for me at the end. And like, the world is so expansive and beautiful. There's so many wonderful humans out here. Like, when a relationship ends, for example, you might feel like, God, like I'm never going to love someone that way again. Or I don't know, like things can feel so do or die in the moment. But if I've learned anything in my life, our feelings, like time heals, and like things change with time. And as much as it can feel like a loss in the moment, like the universe will send other things your way, other challenges, other wonderful humans and experiences, and like you just got to trust in that and buy the ticket and get on the ride. Like, you just got to sign up. So that was that. I hope you enjoyed. A little bit long, but it's not an hour, so maybe save you some time on the podcast episode. They certainly do a great job of more deeply covering all of these topics. So check it out. And with that, I will see you in the next video.